All right, let's do a quick test, see if you guys can hear me. All right. Okay, I can hear myself, so let's see if you guys can hear me. Please let me know. With that being said, welcome to Chart School. It is Tuesday the 16th. I can't believe we're already halfway through. It's 3 days till my anniversary. Trying to count them down so I don't forget. It's kind of one of those, like, if I count it down, I won't actually forget. But I'm pretty sure I'm still going to forget when it comes time. But it is the 19th. But then it's confusing because her birthday is the 18th of September. So it's kind of like one of those, could we've just done it on the same day and make it easier? But no. You guys know how it goes. All right, so welcome. Big shout out to Carl today. Carl was getting some futures trades up there today, and he's been pretty consistent. And it's always nice to see new faces in Discord, especially when they're in the profits channel and discussing some futures contracts and things like that. Don't worry, I give you guys all shout outs, but again, like I said, he's one of the newer guys in the channel, and I wanted to kind of acknowledge him over there. So hopefully he's on with us tonight. So with that being said, let me blink. Whoops, not that one. Hold on, I hit the wrong one. Wrong one. One more. There we go. All right. There we go. Ta-da! It's there. All right. So, let's start off what we normally do. Let's look at the top section here in the scanner and look at some, kind of the movements in the last 24 hours, and kind of dial it down. You can see that there was actually some movement today. Interesting enough, pound dollar actually moved more than pound yen. But again, pound movement, which is always good. Not a lot of other things move. Aussie is down 20 from where it was last night. We'll kind of go over that. There was a small trade set up there in the Aussie dollar that we can touch on. Dollar CAD was up a little bit. Again, there was a little bit of dollar strength across the board. Again, that was something that we had talked about last night. We mentioned that dollar strength coming in, particularly with the news, and retail sales numbers was going to be what drove that. And you guys can see retail sales. Remember we talked last night about how they don't, they miss quite often. You guys can see there was a revision previously, okay, which is lower, but again, this time it was much better than what was actually forecast. So again, it gave us a little bit of dollar strength in there, and again, that's what, that's why you saw the movement in the market. Again, you had Powell speak and Evans speak, but for the most part, I think core sales is really what drove a lot of this, because it was, more or less market-based, or like, indice-based, okay? And again, you can see it across the board. Both these pairs of the dollar as the quote pair, down. These three, up. These two are actually this one down, and again, this is the overall market. But that's why typically you'll see the dollar, the pound dollar. When the pound dollar is higher than the pound yen is, then it was purely a dollar play, not a pound play. Okay, because it shouldn't be. It should always be pound yen more than pound dollar. Okay. All right. So I made sure that everything got updated. Once again, I apologize for the issue last night. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's cover tomorrow real quick. Going into tomorrow, let me cover the news real fast. CPI, which again has been a mover in other pairs. We have the pound CPI. Okay, so we got to make sure we keep track of that. And you can see, for the most part, if we look, they miss most of the time. They're pretty often. And again, forecast has kind of been toned down a little bit from where it was last time. It's forecast at 2, and again, you see it's it bounces around, so we'll see if it's a miss. But again, CPI, anything with pound news could be this number comes in weak, we can see these numbers even drop a bit more. Okay, pound is 830 is basically pound, or I'm sorry, CAD. A lot of stuff in there, although it's CPI, those numbers are good. Manufacturing sales is pretty good as well, as far as CAD goes, just because again they're an export nation, so manufacturing is kind of a big deal. And then the median and trim, it is what it is. Building permits I wouldn't worry about, but the CPI number for CAD is probably the most important at that 830 time frame. Hold on one sec. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh God, what did my daughter do here? Then we go down and we look at 9:30 tomorrow night. Again, we will be on. We'll have time to kind of discuss that from now till then. But again, early action is all going to be here. But again, keep this on your radar as far as employment change and unemployment rate tomorrow night. Just again, that's going to be kind of what I consider one of the top trading chances of the week. All right, so that's going into tomorrow. So with that being said, as I was mentioning, I got everything fixed. We are back live with a green light. I know last night it kind of got confusing, and I was like, wait a second, why aren't the bars moving? And it was for me too. And once I figured it out, I was like, oh god, let's blink out of this one. And I had to go over to Ninja, or not Ninja. What's it called? That other one, MT4. And I know a lot of you guys get confused with MT4, just because you're not used to doing it. Like I said, and I mentioned this in Discord today for any of you guys that if you're listening to this broadcast right now and you're not in the Discord channel. We're pretty talkative during the day, particularly when you guys have questions and things like that, or obstacles, or posting trades and things like that. And any platform that you're used to is very, very easy to use. A platform that you are not not used to using, you're always going to hate. It is what it is. I actually learned. I mean, I learned a couple different programs back in the day with a bunch of different online brokerage firms. When I first started trading currencies. For me, I started trading on MT4, so it wasn't really a big deal. And yeah, it's basic. I mean, it doesn't have the bells and whistles of everything else. So it will look a lot different, but understand it is the most used platform in the entire world. MetaQuotes has been trying to kill it for years, but it just won't die. Just because it's open source and people have, long-term, brokerage, they've paid for the rights to use the software. I just don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, MT5 is out there, but most brokerage firms, pretty much all brokerage firms and currencies have MT4. Like I said, it's nothing fancy. Once you get used to it, it's not bad. It does actually have a lot of bells and whistles that people don't know about. An example is if you have a mouse wheel and you click the mouse wheel, the ruler tool comes up. It's one that I use a lot, but a lot of people don't even realize it's there, but it's got a lot of cool shortcuts and stuff like that. Obviously, this is not MT4. This is Ninja Trader. This is basically what I do most of my charting on at this point now. I have a couple different workspaces for it that I pop up so I can kind of save the information from where we were talking previously. So the big thing we talked about the Aussie yen last night was the fact that we were still kind of sucked inside of this magnet area. Now, over the last, I say 12 hours, you've seen it kind of pull back a bit, but really nothing explosive. It's just kind of grinding, kind of like it's lost. Now, on the lower time frame on the 30, you see that we kind of came down. Well, we'll get rid of this. You can see that we kind of filled this gap, we bounced, we hit it again, and then we popped up and we kind of came back down again. So, we were talking about having a trigger somewhere back in this area, and we got close, but we're still within the same 20 to 30 pip range. Very, very small. The ATR actually shrunk a little bit today. We're down to 47.4. And again, we're still, I wouldn't say anything's really trending strong in this one. Again, I'm not going to trade something I don't feel is trending or is at a potential turnaround point. Again, we're still just sucked inside of this blue. I should change it black and this is the black hole of price action right now, right? Everything is just sucked right into there. All right, so nothing really on this one. Again, I still have my trigger down here. If we can, churn through this junk, I like some type of news release to pop this thing up or down and start giving us some actual movement in it. Again, this one traditionally moves more, but not so much today. Okay, going down to Aussie, New Zealand. Load. There we go. Sorry about that. The baby decided to wake up again at 4:30 this morning. That's why I didn't get typing back to you guys till about 8:30 because she just kept me up the whole time. And then finally, she fell back asleep at 7 o'clock, about 7:15. And I was like, I'm closing my eyes. All right, you guys can see this one. Looking at yesterday's candle, quite small, right? Very, very small body. I'd say fairly large wick to the top, fairly large wick to the bottom. So a lot of indecision, kind of consolidating back down again. And you guys can see that's what we can see on the 4 hour too. We had gap down, up, again, up, down, basically started and ended exactly where, it kind of was. We're still at the very, very bottom. We kind of, again, touched the very, very bottom of this area, ran into this level of buyers over here on the left. You can see that. I'll drag this down here now. Kind of this area is, actually, we'd have to take the wick right there. Okay, so this is what we're kind of dealing with right now. When we do get down to this area, I will drop the smaller time frame. You can see on the 30-minute, this is a little bit better. With some back and forth. Last night we were discussing this kind of grab up here at the top and pull down. This one got really, really close. It came within range. It actually kind of hit this wick over here, and drove back down to the start of this move. Okay, this entire move. Let's see if you were able to get into this at the top. This was only worth about 25, 30 pips. I guess at its peak, if you'd taken it all the way down, about 30, but that's if you snagged the very, very top, which it didn't quite hit the zone. Again, not the easiest entry because we missed it by just a very, very tiny bit. I think the high was 83 and the start of the zone was 85. So Probably not the easiest one to snag. Most likely you missed this one. The only thing that could have, foreshadowed you getting in was on a lower time frame. If you had analyzed this, the fact that it just drove up in what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candles, 8 candles that are green. Again, this is showing you there's some type of reversal happening. And again, over here is where most likely in this range, and here on a lower time frame, you probably got a reversal signal, but not the best one out there. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't look at Aussie New Zealand, but it is one that is not a bad pair to look at on occasion. Okay. Again, use your alerts. Looking at Aussie dollar. So the Aussie dollar is where we actually had the setup. And again, we briefly talked about this one yesterday, although the charts were not necessarily moving with us. You guys can see we were bouncing off yesterday going into this whole thing. We knew already going into Friday that we were approaching this daily sell zone, and we hit it. And again, it was kind of a slow turn. It wasn't a big explosive kind of jump like we would have liked. And again, this entry, again, had you been waiting for a confirmation entry, if you did not get short this one at 30, what is this? At 35, the 70-35 area would have been right in this area right here, 70-35, which it also happens to be exactly where your entry would have been, right? Your confirmation entry would have been a red, a green, and a red. And you could have used this one, not the best one. This would have been your entry on this candle right here. Okay, let's block this off on this candle right here. So you could have trailed this one down. This one is at its peak about 26. So again, still rolling. We're inside of a racetrack to the left-hand side to go down. It is pulling up for more orders. You may have, depending on how you trailed yourself, again, a lot of kind of downward stalling movement here. And again, some of you may have taken yourself out right around here at the 13 mark and gotten just 20 pips on this. Again, 20 pips, not bad. An easy 200 bucks. It is pulling back into an area of sellers. You guys can see the sellers based off this kind of salmon color on the right-hand side showing us where there's unfilled orders. And again, remember, impulse correction, and that could be the impulse move. We need to go back down into this kind of into the 70 or 70 or the 69 90ish area. Again, that would be this previous level right here. Okay, would be at 69.92. Okay, but again, any type of flip you may be able to add on to the position. This is a great trade. I believe I showed you guys add-ons in one of the other things. This is one of those add-on pairs because there's been so many kind of red and green things here. Having an ATR of about 4, I can draw the box for you guys real quick. That's 4 high, right? Do it this way. This is the one thing that I do like MetaTrader better, that the ruler is automatically installed in boxes. So that's 6, 4. Let's see. We'll just set it at 4.5. So, whoops. There is the size of a box. Okay, so add-ons, once you enter, anytime you get a red, green, red below, which would have been down here, there would have been one entry, right? So you could have added a couple other standard lots in here. Another red, green, red down here. You could have added another standard lot on. You could have added another standard lot on here as well. Okay, so you could potentially had 4 standard lots on this trade down to here before it kind of pulled back and started breaking levels. Now, the reason I say you may have gotten out here is because this is where the oscillator would have flipped. Do you guys see this down here? So what this oscillator does is it counts level breaks. Okay, once you get 2 level breaks, it's a confirmed reversal pattern. Okay, once it broke here, you could have taken yourself out. So this is one of those ones with an add-on. Say you got in here, you ended up getting out at the level break here for your first order, right? So your first one would have been 22 pips. Okay, number 2 would have been entry here, and that also went down, and that would have been 14 pips. Your third one would have gone in, wait, hold on, 1, 2, this one would have went in here, and you would have taken 10 pips out of that one, and your last one entered here and got out, and you got 1.5. So if you do the simple math on this one using the add-on strategies, and again, the add-on is a little bit more advanced. I'll pull this up so you guys can see it real fast. Just so you guys can see this, I'll make it easy for you. I know some of you have probably already figured it out in your head, right? So we had 22.6 plus 14.6 plus 10.8 plus 1.5. So in this trade, it was worth about 50.5 pips, total. Okay. Again, if you just took that the one standard, you only got 22 out of it. But you guys see how you can start magnifying your trades based off, watching this and trailing this to the downside. Again, using add-on strategies, using a confirmation pattern, that color changing or the confirmation of the red, green, red on the downside or the green, red, green on the top side, and then using the ATR to add on whenever you get a confirmation of that continued push. Okay, this is how you really start multiplying, really kind of going crazy with a lot of your moves. All right, and this is one of those ones that you would have been able to do that in. All right. All right, so where we are right now, again, wait for a push. I'm not ready to enter anything at this point. I got to see what it's going to do with this kind of selling area where this the salmon color is. But again, the eventual target, the entry would have been off the daily and the 4-hour. Entrance here at the very, very top, running this back down into this area. At this point, you would be at a break-even trade. There's no point to be carrying this any longer with any type of risk. Again, if your entry was here, you'd have 17 in right now. Again, you'd be locked in at least 10 pips. Worst case scenario, you go out with a couple, but you're more or less protected at this point. All right. Go down to CAD yen. So CAD yen will be a tradable pair tomorrow. Again, there's enough CAD news. You'll see this is obviously a racetrack situation, right? An explosion up and a break below. You guys can see it. Now, it did go slightly higher than the wick over wick. The wick over wick was to here, and I believe we talked about that yesterday. Okay, talked about this area right here being a potential kind of situation. Now, it did pop up and kind of base across. And entry on this one, I mean, you want to talk about the entire. Whoops, not that. The entire move top to bottom was only about 46. If you were talking about just retracing back into this area, you're talking about 30 pips. Okay, and again, it's not, it's not 150, 200 pips. If it's an intraday trade based off of a news release, which this, obviously this type of spike always is. Again, take the retracements back to the downside. It went right back to the level of basing. This kind of gets you clear for it. All right. Where we're right now, we've hit this bottom section so much, I think I'm waiting for the trigger to the downside. Again, would have liked for it to go all the way back up to the top. And again, remember we talked about this, that this was profit target 1, this was profit target 2 to the downside. If you guys remember that. Here's where we are now, and here's where we were last night. Okay, it ended up going much higher, and again, not surprised here, not surprised here. This was a pretty good one. It did go much higher. Did not go all the way back up again. Okay, but again, obviously a new spike up and a retracement back down again. So you may have been short already. Like I said, we were talking about these are the 2 profit targets. All right. Tomorrow, again, areas I'm looking for tomorrow for news, again, would be this bottom section, this piece right here. Be looking for a spike into that area. And for that, I'm going to turn this gray to make it a little bit easier for you. Right. And then number 2 would be obviously this one down here. Okay, I think I don't think it's going to go. I mean, it's about 40 pips down. It could go there, but I'd be very, very cautious with it. And then again, top side, I'd probably be looking for this upper kind of 4-hour zone. The 83.23 to 83.34 would be kind of where I'm looking for a spike. So a spike up or a spike down. This one's a little bit close. We'll have to see where price ends up overnight. If this grinds down, another 16 pips or so, and we're sitting in this zone, that changes things slightly. But again, I'd probably pick bottom and top as the 2 kind of spike areas. And then again, I would trade retracements on this one. All right. Euro Aussie. I'm so panicked now that this is going to lose connection again. Yep, we're still green. All right. So this guy is still moving. A little bit of a pullback yesterday. You guys can see here, right? You guys see this candle right here? Small body, still red, but obviously up and back, right? And it was up, down, and sideways, okay? You guys can see over here on the 30-minute, you can see exactly what it ran into, right? It ran into this, okay? The risk on this level, again, downtrend, and this would have been a downtrend setup, right? Downtrend, green candles, downtrend setup situation. You're looking for a level. This is a pretty easy level. And again, there's a wick over wick that got touched here that may have faked some people out, but again, very, very tiny risk. You would have been up, 3 to 1 or something like that at that point. The risk level on this one was only about 6, right? So at this point, you're up about 24. Had you taken this first entry here off the wick over wick, you were up 24 and your risk was only about 3. So again, better risk would have been to take this one above because it's a level on top of a level. And right now you're up a little over 4-1 on this trade. Okay. And again, that's based off of the 4-hour downtrend setup level on the 30-minute. Okay, there's your 6 time frame. And again, looking at this, there's nothing really to stop it in this kind of time frame right here, okay, because of this clearing wick. We mentioned that last night. So, again, not a bad little pullback. And again, this one has been pretty good, right? Impulse correction, 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 with an impulse down. Now, whether it decides to go all the way back, I don't know. There are definitely some buyers in this area, right here. Okay. This is a single wick against a wall, and it's kind of been tested and shown us that there are buyers there. So this is kind of a warning area. All right, back down to the eventual push. Okay, I think this push is probably a bit far, but again, strong push off sideways, and then popped again. Dropped very fast back into it, retested it, and again launched itself out again. So definitely an area where you're going to see buyers. Again, those kind of middle of the patterns, the kind of rally sideways rallies, and drops sideways drops. Those are the nice little kind of hidden setups that a lot of people don't look at. These are things that support and resistance traders don't really typically do or don't typically trade. But again, anytime you get a 4-to-1 risk to reward ratio trade, you only have to be right 26% of the time to be making money in that account. So not a bad way to do it. And even right now, you see on the 30-minute, you have a downtrend setup. Okay, so you could technically drop down to a 5-minute. And look for a level to also get short on this, but I'm not going to, since I'm going to try to maintain consistency with these 3 time frames. All right. Let me know if that makes sense out there. Did anybody take this trade? I'm curious. I know a lot of you are sticking with just the majors, and you're focusing on that. Ernest, I know that you do a couple. You'll do a couple kind of the hybrids out there, but let me know if any of you guys actually took advantage of this trade. And like I said, at this point, you're 4-to-1. You may just want to close it down. Taking 4-to-1s are not bad. I mean, 6 risk is a little, very small as well. So, okay. I'll wait for the answer for you guys on that one, and we will go to your pound. So obviously, we saw pound weakness today. We saw a lot of those pairs. How about this as far as an explosive move out today? Okay. Finally got some movement. Now, it did drive us right back into that channel. And again, remember me saying this. When we got that sideways break, there's always a type of a bear trap there, because the support and resistance traders and the channel traders are saying, hey, we broke the channel, we have to go short. And that's why you see this pop in. They're like, yes, I knew it. It drops down, it closes, they sell. And what does it do immediately? Right? And you guys have done this. I'm sure you guys have done this before. You get into something, you either buy it and it goes down immediately, or you sell it and it goes up immediately. That's exactly what happened here, and sucked it right back in. Okay, now again, nice movement, right? Impulse, correction, and impulse. We were on the top side. We were looking to get bearish, but again, look at this. All of a sudden, boom, right? That is some nice movement. We finally got it. Now, if you guys remember what happened this morning, okay, let me drag the Forex Factory back over again. Right, today's the 16th. Look what we had right here. Okay, now it's average earnings, but it did definitely, it missed here, and then, Germany was off, but then we have this. Okay. So again, whenever you see high impact news, again, average earning index is something that I don't typically follow. It's not one of those things. But again, this was looking for some type of a catalyst, and it got the catalyst that it needed. And again, here you guys can see, look at the bottom of my chart right here. You guys can see, look, do I have an arrow? I don't think I have an arrow, but I do have, oops. I think I do have this. It's the ugliest triangle ever. I was just trying to make a wedge so you guys can see. I want you guys to look right down here at the bottom at 3 o'clock. Okay? Man, that's ugly. There we go. That's better. Here's 3 o'clock at the bottom. Look at the very bottom down here. Where did this happen? There's the spike. That was the initiation of this kind of explosion to the top side. And again, what does that do? Where does it match up? Right over in here. Okay? Things were starting to move. Okay? Because of that data. Again, market open. Boom. Okay. Here's the other piece of that news that kind of stalled it for a second and then rallied it higher. So where we are right now in this pair, okay, this one is hard because, again, we are into the chop of this area, okay? So this zone that we marked off was the entire kind of basing level up top, okay? If we wanted to refine this, I'm on that. Are you really? It's one pair I don't even look at. So this is the entire area where we saw buyers and sellers, right? We've seen area pull back. Now, if we want to refine this a little bit, we need to take this and go to the high, right? And then the start of the last explosion, which is here. Okay, so this is the more refined zone of this large basing area. And that's where we're entering now. And you can see the wicks that are starting to kind of pop up and down. So interesting situation. Again, this is a pretty explosive move for what we've seen. Okay, a lot of basing now. Okay, we did see two higher highs. We were seeing higher lows. We had this trending, but now we have a lower low in this consolidation. You're seeing that the highs are having issues. If we start to see some turning over, and if you look right now, the oscillator is technically at -2, but again, it's sideways, so I don't really read that. But if we can get a break of this level and potentially a break of this level, there is some room. Let's see, there is room from here. It's about 25-30 to the downside, and I think this level will actually break a bit as well. Okay, that would suck it right back in and kind of rubber band. And again, this is very common. You see an explosion out, and then it rubber bands back in. That's definitely a potential for that one. I did the other day. I was looking at the drop, but couldn't see an entry. Okay. It is weird to have Ty on YouTube and not Twitch, but it's okay, Ty. I won't tell you what Ernest is saying about you on Twitch. James made a comment too, but that's James. Just kidding. All right. So right now, again, obviously we have pound weakness, we have euro strength. Again, this was coming in early, and a lot of people ask too, why did it start moving right at the market open when there was no news? Well, part of it is that the data, when there are news releases, people actually know the data before the news release comes out, and it's not technically illegal if you're one of those people that have it. And when they start trading, people see that. So that's why a lot of times you'll see the news move before the actual release. Just something, when I was explained how that actually happens, I was kind of, I wouldn't say surprised, but I was kind of like, yeah, it figures, and that's why, I focus on, a little bit different aspect of news trading. Okay. But again, I'd be looking for this to kind of get some type of retracement. This is not going to go up forever. I don't think the pound is in that much bad of a shape. It's just everybody's jumping on right now, and we're not at the point where everybody's like, all right, well, maybe I shouldn't be, I shouldn't be short. Okay. Looking at euro yen. Load. All right. So euro yen, you'll see, did not have the same grind, right? The last pair shot up, gave us euro strength, pound weakness. But look at this one. Okay, you're like, oh, was the euro strong? No. I mean, look, there's the euro candle for the day, right? A lot of indecision. I mean, it was high at one point and then low at one point. You guys can see. Look over here. Okay, it spiked down, it spiked back up, and then kind of came over. So in the last, 16 hours, it's moved a little bit, but really not too much. You guys can see this in here, right? Okay. Now, this is what we're looking at. Okay, we are right here right now at 21. And when we go back, you can see we're at 21 over here. So we went up, we pushed down, and again, this is that 3 p.m. or that 3 a.m. kind of spiked down, pushed back up. But I mean, here's what started at 46, and we're at 20. So it's only really moved 20 in one day. Okay, so not as much movement as you would think, and a lot of it was just kind of burst up and pushed back down again. Now, the burst up actually came off the 4 hour. Let me adjust this so you guys can see it a bit, right? Okay. Here is, let's see. Okay. Here, trying to get a good view of this one. There is the wick over wick. Okay. And then here's 1, here's 5. So it's inside of this range in here. You guys will see this. See this kind of wick over wick here in this drop, sideways drop. Okay. Again, price went down, it popped, went sideways and dropped. Here's where the news spiked up in and back down again. So let me blow this one up. Okay. Now again, this is middle of the night. You know what? I would say that it's the middle of the night. You guys most likely wouldn't be trading this one, but then again, Mike was posting things at 4 o'clock this morning that he was trading from his phone. So maybe I won't say that, right? No, I got to change this again. God, I did it again. we go. All right. So let me drop this down to a lower time frame. We'll drop it down to a 60 and see if we can see it there. No, it didn't save it on me. Let me go back. There it is. It's waiting for it to load. All right. Yeah. There's the zone right there. Okay. Up, sideways, down, retest of that first zone, down, basing, right? A wick against a wall. And there's the spike. Came up to 3, between 3 and 4 right here is where we had it. And then there's your new spike down. Okay. So again, it's not, not a mystery, why these things turn when they turn. No, the 15-minute is too big to watch before news release. I would watch 5 and 10 minutes candles. But yes, about 15 minutes before, I'd say between 5 and 20 minutes before is where you typically will see it move and then stop, and that's where the orders are getting placed. But use the 5-minute charts, not the 15. That's too big. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, so again, that's where the drop came from. Again, you guys can see it. And again, nice retrace off of it. Total, this was, let's see. Total drop wasn't gigantic. I mean, you're talking about 45 pips to the downside. Again, if you're up at the European Open, that kind of is a nice little push. And then again, retraced all the way back up into this, almost all the way to the top. But you guys will see there was this kind of the wick over wick right here. And that's what it ran into. Here's the bottom of the wick over wick right there. You guys can see what peaked above right there. Okay. 240, boom, back. Okay, so that's what initiated this one. Where we are now, again, approaching the bottom side. I'm not looking to go, I would say, too short based off of where we see on the daily. Not really ready to go long. And you guys remember saying I wanted to see what it did in this area, and that's probably what led to this spike down and this spike back up again. Okay, with the buyers inside of this zone. So we're grinding those guys out right now. I honestly do hope it continues to go a little bit lower. I would like to get short on this pair, and again, I think that's what we're lining up for, is to get short this one. Okay, euro dollar. Okay, so euro dollar is back, right? We are back. Okay, and again, isn't this kind of funny? Like, there's great. I got one mosquito in this room. It keeps buzzing my head, right? So we had a nice little pop out of this buying area, right? Came back up, grabbed these 3 areas, right? We were talking last night. We were basically right here, right? We said we had a little bounce off these 3 candles, right? Drop, sideways, huge drop, 3 descending candles, kind of a saw blade to the downside. Price had spiked up. It spiked up again. That's where it ended. And then boom, it was nothing but down, right? You guys can see here. And again, this is where some of the other traders will be like, oh, this was a double top or a triple top. They'd be like, oh, here's 1 and there's 2 and there's 3, or here's a turtle's head in the middle, right? There's one shoulder, and he stuck his head in, and there's all kinds of things for this. But we basically just retraced him back down to the origin, right? You guys will see this green line. This green line was the target that we talked about. Here's where we are now. Here's where we were last night, and we talked about if it breaks below. This one was an okay one. This may give us a little trouble, but here was the target. What did it do? It dropped all the way down to the target. Okay, and that was about a 50 pip mover to the downside. All right. And that one started pretty early, about 5 a.m., right? Again, that one kind of came in when the European news came in and just dropped, and then really, obviously, for the last 12 hours, hasn't done much. But we are sitting down right now in an area of buyers, okay? It is a little choppy. I can't, there's no way to candy coat this one. This is a very, very weird formation based off of some news and some retraces. This is kind of like, what do you do with all this crap, right? I mean, you got a lot of wicks to the downside, a lot of little bodies, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, this big green candle. And then it retraced right back in 2, and then kind of gave you down. And it flipped, right? On the bottom side, you had all these wicks right here, right? But then all of a sudden, you got this, and now all the wicks are sitting on the top side. And now it's just flatline again. It's after hours. So, again, this one will need some propulsion, okay? We are kind of in a sideways. I mean, again, if you're following the strategy, we're in a sideways market. We're getting out of this one. We are in a downtrend setup on the lower time frame, but we're in a downtrend setup in an area of buyers. Okay, so that kind of invalidates itself. We like downtrend setups when we're here, right? When it's you have a situation like this where it's a downtrend and then you have green. Yeah, we love that. We love grabbing these wicks, right? We love grabbing these candles and then take the trend down. But when you're in a downtrend setup at a level of buyers, it's kind of conflicting. So what we're waiting for it to do is break through this level to the downside. Okay, now what that would look like again is this is that Harry Potter trade that I mention all the time. Okay, there is where the zone is. I will turn this gray. Okay, if we have a break of this area and then a retest, that's when we're looking to get short. Okay, now target wise, I'm going to actually jump up and look at this back on the daily. So here's kind of where we're at right now, right? We're inside of this zone, kind of in this area, right? If we break this one, the next zone is really kind of sitting down in this area, okay? Down at the 111.30 area. So if we break this 111.90, there's about a 60 pip run back down to the next area of buyers, okay? And again, that's where we had that failed measured move to the downside, okay? Again, we did not retrace back up again, but again, this was starting to, it turned and flipped, came back down again. Again, it bounced off of a level over here, okay? So where we are right now, you could potentially take it long. The only thing that keeps me from doing that is the descending wicks right here and this kind of weird kind of formation. If we do start to build up, get a nice little red, and then get a nice little decent green, once we go positive 2 above, probably above this 112.20, I may be looking to take something back up, but unfortunately there's only about 40 pips for this thing to run. Okay, and again, that's with not really much U.S.-based news, right? If you're thinking about what's going to be a catalyst for this one, where do you see a catalyst over here? Okay, not really a whole lot. Okay, here's the pound news this morning, and there's the sentiment. Okay, here's tomorrow. No U.S. news. All right, so I'm afraid we're not going to get. I just don't think we'll get that huge push. I'd like it to grind through. I'd much rather have the grind, the retrace, and then the drop into this lower level. Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. So here is the pound yen trade. Okay. Pound yen, we're back up to 85.7. Woohoo! We're out of the 84s, but it's still got a long way to go before we really get much movement. Again, this one is a lot of different ways you can take this one. So here is, remember the yellow is what our alert was, and we talked about this being an alert to get in. Okay, here we are right now at 1, and here was the last time we were at a 1. We just pulled back above it again. Okay, what we did is at that point we were in a downtrend setup situation. Okay, definitely in a downtrend, green pullback right around the alert. And remember, we wanted to know when it broke through this low at the 35.07 mark. And it came down into, again, the 35.96, which is about, that's pretty standard for kind of drop throughs of round numbers. And what it did was it came back. And again, this is why it's so important to mark these off. There's your level over level, or wick over wick right there. Okay. There is another one behind, so there is a level on top of a level. That's what I was trying to get at. But again, this is on a smaller time frame. Once you saw this wick through, that would have been your entry. Okay. And again, to the downside, it's kind of hard to figure out, but the risk on this one was actually rather small. All right. The risk was 10 pips. If you can find a 10 pip zone on the pound yen on a 4-hour time frame, not too bad. The resulting kind of move on that one, and again, down to its peak, right? If this is your entry, down to its peak was about 124 pips. You're looking at like a 12 to 1. Okay. Where it is right now, you're at what? 9 to 1. Okay. 10 pips on a pair like this are great. You took almost no heat. I think you took about 3 or 4 pips of heat total in this trade. Again, downtrend setup. Now, could you have taken this on the smaller time frame? Sure. Okay. Had you seen this, the downtrend setup, and then decided to drop it down to, say, the 30-minute for entry? Again, 10 pips is small. It's kind of hard to get lower than 10 pips. I'm not going to lie, particularly on a pair like this. You guys can see it right here. It's the same thing. Here is our yellow was our alert line. Here you can see the basing a little bit better, right? And the basing is this. It's basically the same exact basing that we saw on the other chart, right? Impulse correction, impulse basing drop, correction, impulse correction across. Boom, it tagged the area once and dropped. Tagged the second time and it took just a little bit, and then boom. Down, impulse correction, impulse down, and that's where we started to kind of build back up again. Okay, and again, it just kind of baseline is started to fall back a bit. Okay, so sometimes you don't actually have to drop to the lower time frame to figure out where the zones are. You can see them on the upper time frame. And again, particularly when you get good at the wick over wicks, like it's easy to see here these green kind of pullbacks and sideways areas because they're green, right? You're looking at red. I mean, unless you're colorblind red green, you can see that there's a difference, right? It's harder to see when it's a 4-hour because you're just looking at, wicks, right? You're looking at things like this, but that's exactly what it's showing you is pullbacks. And the more time you guys have in front of the chart, you'll be able to see that, okay? It's very similar. Like, I know a bunch of you guys are fib traders. Like, I know, James, you are very much a fib trader right now. Jack can do the exact same thing. Jack can just look at the chart because he's so used to doing it and say, oh, the 38's probably here, the 61's probably sitting there, and there's the 50. Just because you get so used to doing it. It's the same thing. Reading the candles, I can look at the wick over wick and say, yep, this is what the smaller time frame looks like. And vice versa. If I'm looking at the lower end of a chart, like a 5-minute chart, I don't need to use smaller time frame charts as often because I can tell you what it does on a 10 or a 15-minute because I can see how the candles formed and know what the 3 smaller or 2 smaller candles are actually doing. But now I can see more data on that time frame. Okay, there are some people that go down to like tick charts and 1-minute charts and stuff like that, and that's crazy. When you get good at, when you've been looking at this enough, you can actually tell what the larger, the larger time frame. When I say larger, I mean like 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute. You can tell what the smaller ones are doing based off of how they're formed. Okay, so I didn't really need to drop this one down to be able to take this one. You could have taken this one off of the 240. Okay, and that's what it looks like. A drop, a wick over wick. That's equidistant, right? And a drop. Came back up, retested, and there's the continuation of the trade. Okay. And what's interesting about this is this. Okay. Right in here is where news hit. Okay. So I get this question a lot. Well, doesn't news matter? Well, yes and no. News is the catalyst for movement, but it doesn't dictate the zones, right? So it was already moving, right? I mean, this is last night, right? This is 4-hour charts. Then it comes back up again, right? Here's at 1. Here's at 5. So the news was right in this time period. And what did it do? It came up, it retested, and dropped. So looking at this chart, you wouldn't know whether there was news or there wasn't news. Okay, that's what's fun about this. Ernest, wick over wick is absolutely my favorite, and it's the sneakiest and kind of most successful. Because people don't see it. A lot of times you gotta, you get, the tops and bottoms. When you have the, the rally, the kind of the rally-based drops or the drop-based rallies, the kind of the turning points. Those have a lot more kind of, I'd say, noise in them because again, you have the support and resistance traders be like, "Yep, this is what works," and no, it's not what works. It's about reading price and it's about supply and demand where they are. A wick over wick is showing you where the buyers and sellers are inside of a move, and that's what screws up support and resistance traders. Okay. And again, you get good at that. It's it's the way to do it. All right. So again, this was a nice little one. If you're able to grab it, where it is now, again, like I said, it's we're kind of in no man's land. It's got to break some lows here to the downside. It's got to show some conviction that it wants to go lower. Now it's just kind of chopping back and forth to continue through. But again, the trade said it was off the 4-hour. If you're looking to the left as well, you can see where we are right now. There is wicks above where we are. We are in this kind of wick against a wall situation, but we are basically sideways down confirmed in 2 different things. So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? And in this drop, there's nothing really clean. I mean, there's a wick behind a wall and a little kind of jab here, but it's not as clean as this zone. This would be like a C versus this is an A as far as wick over wicks go. Okay. Going down to the pound dollar. Now the pound dollar moved more. Okay. And again, I mean, this is my trade of the week right here. Okay. This is my I don't know, Lou. Are you on? I don't know. Lou may be here. Or Lou may not be here. We talked about needing certain things, but this was my trade of the week. You guys see the top of this one. We talked about the drop, the kind of sideways descending. It came up and touched. That's where we were last night when we were at chart school. Actually, we were here already. We'd already started the move down from Sunday, right? Here was the level where I said we were going to run into some resistance, right? Here's one, and here's where we were last night. Okay, and I said if we broke, you continue to do this, but the entry was up here. Well, this is what today's was. Okay, here is the movement to the downside. Okay, from this basing level down, there's your 100 pips. Okay, and again, I explained to Lou that, again, your goal is 30 pips a day, or if you hit a target, right? Well, this is 3 days worth of a little bit over 3 days worth of profit in one trade. And again, we talked about this being an area. It dropped, it based, and it spent a lot of time there. It's chewing up orders, and if it shoots out the bottom, again, that's where your trigger was to the downside. If you caught the entire piece, from Sunday, you're looking at 170 pips in basically from Friday till now. Okay, with one standard lot, you guys can do the math. Okay, 170 times 10, and that's in one pair with very, very little risk. I think the entire risk on this trade was, let's see, 15 pips. Okay, 15 pips. So 150 bucks for 1700 on one standard lot. Okay, this is your finisher combine in one day. All right. Okay, so where we are now is we are in a downtrend setup situation. Why? Because again, we were here before, right? When this was green, we were in a downtrend setup. We have pushed lower and we do have green, so we are technically in an area where there is a setup. The problem is, why did it stop here? And this is where we're running into an issue. Okay, this is where we have this issue. Okay, did it stop because it ran into buyers, or is it retracing a bit to grab more sellers to the downside? Okay, that's a question that I don't know. And the way that this is based now and kind of came across, and we've actually kind of flipped, I'd be out of the trade, waiting for us to kind of determine if we're going to start retracing, or if we're going to start pulling back up. And again, there isn't, this is not a bad pullback area. Okay, the formation is a little bit strange because here's one wick, here's a higher wick, and then here's a lower wick. So it's not the most ideal situation, and you have a single wick against a wall here. This is actually pretty high quality, so is this one, okay? But if you're going to go up here, you'd basically just take it all the way up. So we are at the bottom level of what I would consider kind of the curve, right? I mean, here's the dailies, right? We are at the far extreme of the bottom, and then here's the top, okay? So typically when we're this far, you're expecting some type of rebound back again. It is the pound, but again, the true question is, how bad can the pound actually be? It can be bad, but is it really as bad as it's getting beat up right now? That's something I truly don't know. And it's not my job to guess. I can just, trade what the chart tells me. The chart tells me that we had this nice bounce off over here. We had a big push down. We haven't really had any type of retracement in there. You could jump on, but you don't want to be the last guy jumping into a trend. We are in a downtrend setup on 2, but is there a clean area to get in? And there's a few different places, but right now, there's nothing that I'd say I'm putting an order here, or I'm putting an order there. They just don't exist right now. Excuse me. Sorry. In this pair. All right. And what scares me is the fact that this last spike here, stops. I'll leave the market off. Okay. See how it stopped right at the 124.00? And that's where we're right now. We're 12 pips from that. So that's why it's kind of a strange area that I'm going to sit and kind of watch this one a bit. All right. New Zealand dollar. Load. All right. So New Zealand dollar is pulled back. Okay. Again, this one is run into, and again, these are kind of strange wiki candles over here, and this is not the best basing area. That's what we kind of ran into. I was looking more for kind of a drop from this wick over wick down, and it did. It pulled back. It was a 2-to-1, and then it rallied higher. So where we are up top now, there's more up here, but none of this I would consider really the highest quality. I mean, yeah, there's a nice drop out of that, but it immediately retraced. I actually don't mind this zone up here. There's a bit of a gap. That's a much cleaner zone. It closed here, opened, and then kind of it refilled the gap immediately and continued to push down. So it's kind of the best thing for this one. You guys will see this level of basing. It dropped, it came over again, and now it kind of pulled back. I can remove it though at this point. The other problem I have with this one right now in the 4-hour is this level, this level, this level, and so they're very, very close. You're talking about 4 levels within 20 pips of each other, these pullbacks, so it's not really the cleanest thing. The downside, or on the 30-minute, it's kind of the same situation. It's a lot of wicks, right? I mean, look how much wick is in here. It is a lot. I mean, This on the 4-hour, not bad. This is a lot of wick. Okay, a lot of indecision on this pair. So again, I tend to stay away from things that have that much wick. Okay, dollar CAD. Dollar CAD is definitely something we're looking at getting into tomorrow morning. All right, so dollar CAD is giving us somewhat conflicting signals. We have sideways downtrend and we have uptrend setup. Okay, it has pushed back up again, but if you guys remember from yesterday, we had this wick. Okay, I hate this wick with a passion because it cleared all the way up a lot of the orders, and it basically says there's nothing above kind of this range all the way up. Okay, now with that being said, if you look on the lower time frame, and again, this would be continuing the trend to the downside. We had a lot of push up today, right? A lot of push, up, and we're finally starting to see kind of a break. Now we just turned -3. We went from breaking all these levels to one candle kind of dropped down and took out 3 in a row, and that's why we're sitting at -3 now. If we can get this red to close, if we can get this green to close and then we can get a red push down somewhere over here, that would give us our red, green, red color change confirmation to the downside. And we could potentially be open for this amount of retrace, okay? Probably back down into here, okay? And you're talking about going from 77 down to 30. So you're talking about 44 pips. So that's not a bad area to kind of, bounce things off of wherever we get the confirmation. Now, you do have some ascending wicks over here, which are a little bit scary for me. They do show there's an area of buyers because the price did not come down as low. This red, though, did come down to almost this. So the area is somewhere in here. It's not a very large one, but I think we'll be able to retrace this back down to the 130.30, particularly with any type of with any CAD strength tomorrow. Okay. Again, if you look at, let's pull up Forex Factory one more time. If you look for tomorrow on the 17th, there is CAD news. Okay, now we do have one number, but any of these things that are positive, particularly like a CPI, right? You're talking about this. If the actual is greater than the forecast, it's good for the currency. If this is not as bad as they think it is, which it hasn't been that bad, and this comes in at a point, a 0.1 even, really, a 0.1 is considered much better than this forecast. We can start getting some movement, okay? And that, again, that would coincide with us kind of retracing back down to this 130.30 area, okay? So again, that could be 20 pips nice to the downside. If you guys are going to stay up late tonight again on the 30-minute, you could take this, if you can get the green and then a red close, okay, you got to have a close, so it's going to be at least 30 minutes. Looks like we're going to close in the green here, so you need at least 30 minutes of a red to the downside to be able to get that confirmation entry back lower, okay? Dollar Swiss. All right. So dollar Swiss is somewhat of a mess. We have the buy and the sell zone very, very close, and it's just kind of walking back and forth. Here's that rubber banding I talked about, kind of the bear trap. Like, ooh, if it goes lower, I'm getting in. Well, yeah, but that's the trap for the support and resistance traders. On the lower time frame, you can see it pulled back. It grabbed this little wick over wick, this basing level before it shot back down again. But we're only talking about, I guess there's about 40 pips in there. It's not horrible, but it did get pretty choppy. You did not get the kind of confirmation entry until here, okay? And we're slightly lower than that right now. Problem is on this one too is if you took this one, you'd have about 15 pip risk. It only has a 58 pip ATR, which is, I know it's better than some other pairs, but besides these, every so often like spikes, I don't find this one is going to be as productive, unfortunately. It's still got a bunch to kind of clear out for me here. And again, you guys can see, again, if you're going to just follow this for chart reading purposes. Okay, there's the red candle where it exploded out, if you guys can see what it touched on. So there is a potential setup from the 4-hour, but again, it is sideways down, sideways down. It did tag a 4-hour zone. It is trying to push back down again. It will most likely go back down here, but it's only about a 20 pip move to the downside. So I want a little bit more meat. Oh, it's thunder. I was like, what is that noise? Again, pop and then a retrace back down again. All right. I know, Ty, that you love this one. You're all over this guy. I just don't find this one as exciting. Occasionally I'll find things, but not where we are kind of wedged right now. Now, with that being said, if it does start to gain some traction on the downside, I do expect it to come back down to this 97.62 area, which is about 100 pips from where we are right now. Okay. I think that's your target. think that's the target you're looking at on the downside. If we can break through that zone. All right, and last but not least, dollar yen. All right, so dollar yen pulled back up. Now we talked about this one. We talked about being in this zone and pulling away, and you would have gotten stopped out. This zone was 77 to 81. It's about 11 pips to the top side. We talked about going back and retracing up. This is one if you got in and it popped and it came back down, you're like, oh, I'm losing my profit. But you had to be confident in the system and just continue to follow this higher. Okay. Now it's gone up about 40 pips, 50 pips at this point. It did go back up. And again, this is a strange area because this red candle spiked above the actual base. I don't like when they do that because it shows that base was not necessarily a real base. Now we can drop down and look at that on the lower time frame. We're talking about the 80-50 level. But again, it gets up into this. Let's see. Yeah, it's up over in here. Yeah, it's kind of up in this junk right here, right? Yeah, it would be in this spike right here. Okay. And again, it's not really, like this pullback. It's like, it didn't really turn around on much. So you guys can see that's what it's running into. This kind of level of basing, right? This kind of piece right here. Remember we drew this yesterday saying that this one clean wick up shows that really the basing level is going to start here, and that's exactly what it tagged off of. So, not horrible. Again, we have gotten confirmation. Actually, we have not gotten confirmation to the downside yet on this one. The greens keep. This one didn't go as high, but I don't like the way that formed. So, with no news tomorrow, I'd like this to kind of push its way back down again. I'd be really, really happy if we can close down here on the bottom side. I'd like to be in this buying kind of demand area going into the news we have coming up on Thursday. So it's got some, it's got some time. Tomorrow, there's really not much. Building permits is not going to movement, but I think on Thursday, but the manufacturing index may have the ability to do it. But then again, the consumer sentiment has another shot to kind of push us. Okay. It's kind of a blah week, but with that being said, Ernest, you're going to hate me for this one, but I feel like Trump is due for a tweet. I feel like it's been, I feel like he hasn't picked enough, fights lately. I feel like I feel like he's got something coming. Going to go find Wick Over Work for Dummies by Ernest. Need to study them more. Actually, as Ernest said today, it's in the what's it called? The terminology section. The terminology section is, probably the easiest place to grab it at. Okay, but grab them. Like I said, those things are key. Ernest Ernest can back me up on those things. Particularly, the drop-based drops and then the rally-based rallies. Those hidden ones in the middle, those are the key. Now, also look at, the single wick against the wall is another one. You don't technically see them as often, but they are also, quite good. Ernest is going to write all kinds of books, but only after he cooks everybody some barbecue. Ernest, I decided though, when we do our 100 funded trader banquet, I'm requesting beef ribs because I just can't get them here. So I want some smoked beef ribs, and I want you to do one of those ducks. Those ducks looked awesome. And hello, Anna Ranatari, maybe. Play terminology and setup selection every day. It is worth it. Thank you. I think it is too. All right, guys. So with that being said, it is right at 10 o'clock. That's kind of all I have. So tomorrow we will be on the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern time starting. We'll see what we can have come up. Any questions you guys have, definitely get in there in Discord and, tag us on there. Ask some questions. If you were not on Discord today, what I recommend is go back and look at the discussion today, particularly in the profit section. Like I said, that profit section is a way for you guys to hold yourselves accountable with profits and losses. And a lot of times we learn the most from losses and what we can take from that. And Lou put some stuff out there and we had a really good discussion. So if you guys are, if you guys haven't, caught up on everything, go read the forums today on Discord. And I read the profit section about what we talked about picking targets and ways to hold yourself accountable and not get overconfident and particularly not overtrade. And go see what James did in there. So James was like one of these guys like, yeah, I took some heat, but then I brought home like $4,000. It's like every day he's like got the same thing. He takes some heat, but then he kills it later on in the afternoon with Nadex. So it's one of those things. It's like, when you find something that works, you do a whole lot more of it. But this man's trying to make himself well-rounded to trade everything. So he's doing a good job in there. And Ernest, as always, thanks for coming out, buddy. So, with that being said, it's 10:01. We'll cut it. We're not cut it short. We're just not going super late today. But I'll see you guys tomorrow night, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you guys have any other questions, have them ready to go. And whether dump them on Discord or dump them in the chat when we get started. You guys take care, and I'll catch you later.